Welcome to a very special episode of Look Inside. Very special because we're going to be looking at the one and only item we did from Back to the Future, the Mattel Hoverboard. Definitely one of the coolest items we did. Alright, so before we join into specifics about the hoverboard, a quick announcement out there for everyone new to this channel or who's been watching this channel. Running kind of a, I don't know if you'd call it a promotion, but basically a goal to hit 1,000 subscribers. And once we do, we're going to be unlocking some really cool content, linking a lot of brands and talking about what happened with Matty Collector after it went away. And stay tuned for the very end of this video, and we'll actually be talking about a video that will be linking the hoverboard to another major Matty product. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Alright, let's jump into the hoverboard. So, yeah, Mattel, MattyCollector.com, Mattel's direct-to-consumer website, set out to make a hoverboard prop replica from Back to the Future. Why do this? Well, we'll get into the specifics, but really, the big reason was because it was going to be awesome. It was going to be cool. I'm personally a huge fan of Back to the Future, and especially the second movie, because there was definitely something about a flying skateboard that just captured the imagination. And in the movie, the hoverboard was made by Mattel. So that alone was kind of a major reason why we should look at doing this. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how we made it, what fan expectations were, how we kind of disappointed some fan expectations, and what you were supposed to do with your hoverboard when you got it. So, alright, here we go. The Mattel Hoverboard. We did everything we could to sell this in. We promoted it at Comic-Con. We promoted it at New York Toy Fair. I even hired Trisha Hertzberger to do some PR for us at San Diego Comic-Con. Yes, that Trisha Hertzberger, who you may know from her geek channel and her work with G4. So we were really serious about this thing. We wanted to make this an awesome item. And one of the problems is there were a lot of different hoverboards in the movie. There wasn't just one. So how do you make a prop replica for an item that doesn't really have a definitive version of it? Now, we knew for starters we were going to be the only company that can make a truly screen-accurate hoverboard simply because of the Mattel logo. Everyone else just had to have sort of a red circle on their board because Mattel was not going to license out the logo. This actually was something I learned when Diamond Comics contacted me very early on in Matty Collector saying they were interested in doing a hoverboard prop replica, and I ran it by everyone in the high-ups, and it was definitely a no-go on letting them use the Mattel logo. They did go on to make a flux capacitor and a Mr. Fusion, but those prop replicas didn't need the Mattel logo. And so Diamond Comics was not going to make a hoverboard without the Mattel logo, and that meant there was really only one company to do it. Now, my original thought was I wanted to do a whole line of Back to the Future props and action figures and collectibles. There had really, at that point, never been Back to the Future action figures before. Reaction went on and made some later on. And of course, at New York Toy Fair recently, it was announced that there would finally be kind of some 6-inch, 7-inch figures from NECA. But this was a gem in the unmade toy action figure world. And honestly, I really wanted to be the ones to do it. So, one of the great things about being at Mattel was we were in contact with all the major studios. So we could easily pick up the phone and call our friends at Universal. And they said, well, you actually, if you want to make action figures, you need to talk to Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Michael J. Fox was definitely on board, especially because we were going to promote and make a big donation to his Foundation for Parkinson's Research. Christopher Lloyd, on the other hand, not as much. He was not as interested in seeing action figures of himself. Essentially, his agent said that he was bigger than Twilight. Well, I don't think they meant that Twilight. I think they meant this Twilight. But that essentially meant we were going to have to pay major bucks to get a Christopher Lloyd likeness, and that was not going to happen with Matty Collector budget. So, Twilight aside, we were just going to focus on the hoverboard and how we could make a really amazing prop replica because we had access at the Mattel logo, which nobody else did, which meant we had an advantage over every other company as far as making a screen-accurate hoverboard. Oh, this is going to come bite me in the end, isn't it? All right, so one quick thing about the Mattel logo is if you count the spikes, you'll see the logo that was used in the movie is not correct. It does not have the 64 spikes, but it's still clearly the Mattel logo, and that's just a little piece of trivia. All right, so Bob Gale, the screenwriter and producer of Back to the Future, heard what we were doing, and he agreed to come down to Mattel and talk to the design team, and he brought some screen-used hoverboards with him. This was absolutely one of the highlights of my time at Mattel. You know, he spent a huge amount of time with us. He showed us the different boards. He told us about the fact that there were actually 27 different boards made for the movie, and every single one was different. Some had the green circle, some didn't, some even attached. One was screwed to the shoes. Meaning it was attached to Michael J. Fox's feet. They had close-up boards. They had stunt boards. They even had one that had little springs on it, so when Michael J. Fox threw it down, like for that shot where it's first floating, it would look like it was floating. They even had ones that were on wheels. So this really only led to the further thought that it was going to be tough to make an accurate one because there was no one board. You had to deal with so many different ones. But we were pretty determined, and we were so grateful that he came down and shared with us the board, especially because we were able to take measurements so we could translate it both into the full-scale board and to do a mini board for 6-inch figures, which we did as an offering for those who pre-ordered it. And I loved this. This was actually one of my favorite parts of the whole project, because having a board that could be held by an action figure, to me, was almost as cool as having a Marty McFly figure. Now, I was happy, but the fans were not. When the board was finally released, we got huge pushback from the fans. They were angry, and they were upset for a couple reasons. The biggest one was that the board didn't float and didn't hover. And this one, I was like, look, there's no defense on that one, guys. There's no such thing as anti-gravity technology. We can't make it float. But the other big thing was people saying it was not screen accurate. And again, this came from the problem that there were so many. If you were trying to make a lightsaber, for example, there's one lightsaber. It's very clear what it looks like, or at least, what Luke's lightsaber. There was one, Obi-Wan had one, Darth Vader had one, etc. But people were so upset, including Bob Gale was angry too, to the point that he actually withdrew his support for the project, which blew my mind. And he tried to reason that, well, if we could make this in 1987, why can't you guys make this, 20 years later and make it perfect? So I actually want to finally address that. There's a big reason. This is a screen-used hoverboard. It was made by hand. All of the props were made by hand. So all 27 of them. And a handmade prop for a movie costs thousands and thousands of dollars to make. And it's, again, made by hand. We were trying to mass produce a hoverboard for around $100 or $120 for sale. So, of course, it was not going to look like something that cost thousands and thousands of dollars to make. And again, there were so many different of the board in the movie that, just look at these. Some of them had the green circle, some didn't. Some had purple, some had pink. It's like, how do you make a screen-accurate board when there's literally 27 different versions? And as far as that whole anti-gravity thing, wow, for years I was having fans send me video links to German laboratories and people who had come up with these mag-lift technologies, saying, why can't we make the hoverboard float? Look, these people are doing it. It only costs $2 million to make it float. And I was like, look, we're making a $120 prop replica. We're not selling $1 million product that will really float. But fans were really, really angry that we could not make the hoverboard float. It did glide, and it had amazing sound effects, like you could push it along the floor, but the fact that it didn't float and all you could do was display it just really offended people. And honestly, I was shocked. While a lot of prop replicas have lights and sounds, the PK meter doesn't actually track ghosts, and lightsabers don't actually have a blade. So I could not understand why fans just were so upset that our hoverboard did not defy gravity. and that it was really just an item to display. But I think some of this came from the movie magic. There was just something about a flying skateboard that really grabbed all of our imaginations. So the idea that a hoverboard existed and was made by Mattel and it didn't float, just, I don't know, it just didn't click with people. But, you know, what can I say? Anti-gravity technology was not affordable and did not exist for a $120 prop replica. All right, so I would not be remiss if I didn't also discuss the amazing package that we did for this. So we wanted to make the hoverboard package look like it was actually bought in 2015 when the movie took place, as if this is the way Mattel sold hoverboards and made hoverboards. So the product was, actually sold as a real, or the packaging was made to look like a real item, and we had original art made based on kind of the kids from the future. 2015 is now the past, but the future in the movie, and we even did the back panel to call out the features, again, as if it was a real item on store shelves. Even saying, don't be a bojo on a bike. Which, by the way, I got to ask Bob Gale what a bojo was, and he told that it was based on his gym teacher from high school, who is Joe Bo, and he just reversed it to make a futuristic slang. So that's where bojo comes from. Oh, and we even had those other colors on the cross-sell, again, as if there was like a whole line of hoverboards. And hey, we actually even did that with the idea that maybe we could do more. We could do different colors if it was popular enough. But the box was definitely meant to be part of the product. We knew fans were going to want to keep the box too and maybe display it. So a lot of love went into the box, almost just as much as went into the product. We were really proud of that box. And again, there's going to be a lot of hoverboard product. Back to the Future is an evergreen movie, and you'll never see one with the Mattel logo, because that's just proprietary to Mattel, and they're not going to, loan that out to other companies. So this was kind of the one shot to get a hoverboard actually with the logo, and that was, if anything else, that was a major reason to do it while we were at Mattel. The hoverboard is it's an amazing product. It was an amazing, prop in the movie. It was an amazing scene that captured our imagination. I'm really proud of what we did. I know some fans were disappointed that, it didn't float, and that there were some things that weren't accurate. But again, 27 different versions. How do you make a screen accurate prop when there's 27 different versions and they all look very different from each other? I'm really proud of what we did. I felt like we did the best job we could, and I still, to this day, when people see the hoverboard in my office, it's like the first thing people go for, and they're like, just, wow, that's amazing. So I really love it. I'm glad we did it, and it was an amazing opportunity. And if it wasn't for the hoverboard, we would not have gotten to do Castle Grayskull, which you may ask, what's the relationship there? And we'll get to that. That's going to be a major video as well. Once we hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, that's another video that I'm going to upload and talk about what the link is between the hoverboard and the Castle Grayskull that we did on Matty Collector. So you guys can help. If you haven't subscribed and you enjoy this channel, all you got to do is subscribe. Won't cost you anything, and you're not even going to get more emails. It just means that these videos will show up in your feed, because you want that anyway, right? Thanks for your support, guys. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sharing this video, and I'll see you guys around the internet.